Welcome back to another edition of Force Friday, where we talk about Star Wars theories, characters, concepts, comparisons, analyzations, collectibles, and more. And today we're going to be talking about our wish list, picking up with part 3 of this series in regards to 1/12 scale figures that we want from the film Revenge of the Sith. Now, I say Black Series in the title because I kind of use it as a catch-all to just describe the 1/12 scale. When I say that, I'm referring to Bandai model kits, I'm referring to SH Figuarts, I'm referring to Mafex if they still have the license, which I believe they do not. So if anybody wants to tackle any of these figures, it will count for me. The interesting thing about this is we'll come back in a year and check on the status and see if anything has been checked off the list, and then we can adjust the list as need be as we move forward. Just to redefine the rules of this, these lists are compiled of the top 10 figures that have not been released or announced in any way, shape, or form. And with that, we can get into one of my favorite films from the saga, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And we'll come in strong at number 10 with Bail Organa, an important character not only to the saga, but also to this trilogy specifically, Leia's adopted father, who plays a pivotal point not only politically in this series, but also in terms of explaining how Leia grows up in a position of power on Alderaan. Plus, it's Jimmy Smits, right? Who doesn't want a figure of Jimmy Smits hanging out around the house? And you can put him in that little car with Yoda. But he is my numero 10. Moving on to number 9, the Wookiee leader Tarful. I would love to have an army of Wookiees, as I'm acquiring an army of Chewbacca's, it seems. But I would love to have an army of Wookiees, and I think about the possibility of dioramas and such, building my own Kashyyyk. All of that seems alluring to me. And since he was kind of the chief of this clan of Wookiees and led the attack against the droid army, plus has this established relationship with Yoda, it would very much please me to obtain a 3D representation of him within this scale. He's also one of the few that's actually named while they're on Kashyyyk. So automatically, I feel like that gives him a little bit of a leg up in the competition regarding the Wookiees. The Ocho. I've included a Padme on the prequel list at every film, and this film is no different. And the one that I would prefer, although I'll take any, as I previously stated, because I just want more and more representations of that character, but the one that I would prefer for this is her kind of traveling suit Prego Padme, the one that she gets choked out in on Mustafar. I kind of feel like it's probably her most iconic outfit within this film, since most of the outfits are there to kind of just be these large gowns of a pregnant mother, and this one actually has a little bit of action figure element that would come through. I think that this one would probably be the way to go. It would suit both of the toy element and the character element, as well as probably the most iconic representation of her within this film. Which takes us to number 7, Mas Ameda. I think that's how you pronounce it anyway. We've talked about this on this channel numerous times, but if there was one thing that really was determined to make me look even more like an idiot than I do on a normal day-to-day basis, it would be the people who come up with the names for Star Wars characters. They are impossible. Unless I hear them spoken, I'm pretty much left to my own devices, and my own devices are extremely limited in terms of cognitive ability. So, Mas Ameda, why? Because this movie is called Revenge of the Sith, and I really feel like the key characters to get out now, since most of the key cast is done, is characters that support the title. Mas Ameda is an interesting looking character. He's been by Palpatine's side for pretty much the entire ride of the prequels. He plays a part in setting up the Jedi, and I think the key to figures within this film for a collection revolve around the villains. And the best way to make a villain stand out is have his or her supporting cast, and in this case, he's like his right-hand man. Now, Sly Moore would also be in the running for me, but she didn't quite make the list this time, even though you guys know I happen to like a bald lady. Something about it. Can't tell you what it is. Something about it. Moving on to number 6, Aggie Kolar. I don't know. One of the guys that went in to fight Sidious, I believe, when Mace Windu went to arrest him. This is another one of those scenes that I think is kind of pivotal to represent on your shelves. I often joke about Mace Windu needing his best 4 guys, but the best 4 guys weren't available, so he said any 4 guys will do. And when you start settling, this is what happens. You get corkscrewed by an evil Sith Lord and cut to pieces. However, I've been careful about this list in terms of the previous 2 in order to kind of spread out my choices for Jedi supporting cast along the way, to kind of check certain boxes so that by the end we could have a fully kind of formed or developed cast of Jedi characters. This one is an example of a character who has a more iconic role in a very specific shot, but not a big contributing role to the films as a whole, but I think that this would be a good place for him to land, which is why I chose him. Which brings us to our number 5 and is along the same lines of thinking, and that's Stacey 10. Another character that's kind of been there for a couple films, and you see him in the background, and he has an interesting look, kind of inverted devil horns or bull horns or whatever the case may be. A character that you often see pop up in customs pages and such because you can kind of piece together certain bits along with a couple of 3D printed pieces and create your own. But I think that speaks to the testament of his character. And now that figures like Plo Koon and Kit Fisto have been announced, I think it's only right to kind of seal off the major supporting Jedi cast with this character, who I would probably put in number 3 in regard to the more iconic supporting Jedi cast. Interesting features and will definitely help flesh out your Jedi ranks. Numero 4, the Magna Guards. Now, once again, I feel like this film is about villains, and the best thing to do is to really flesh out your villains' cast of characters within these films on this run. It's almost guaranteed that every collector, if he buys one, is going to buy 2, myself included, because who doesn't want Grievous flanked by 2 Magna Guards? They gave Obi-Wan a run for his money, if ever so briefly. They had a cool look that you can incorporate the soft goods into with the capes over their shoulder. They're some of my favorite droid designs within all of the prequel films, but to be fair, they don't have much competition, and I think many people would enjoy having a couple, and I think, once again, for every one you get, you're going to get the collectors to double down. So to me, it's an obvious choice. Number 3, Barriss Offee. Now, much like I stated before, I've been careful about spacing out these Jedi characters in order to kind of spread them amongst the different films. This is a character that played the background role as a Padawan to Illuminora Unduli. She's taken bigger roles in different fiction along the way, or expanded universe material along the way. Known in the EU, I believe, for her healing abilities. I can't have an Illuminora without her. They're 2 peas in a pod. They look good together, and that's why I have her so high up on the list. Plus, and I know I've already touched on it already, but just to expound upon it, like the story that they fleshed out for her in the Clone Wars made her one of the most interesting and compelling characters within the kind of Jedi Council, as well as just putting a layer of interest on them at all. You know, most of them just kind of serve as background characters or like cool characters to look at and do spins and flips and jumps and kicks. But with her, they actually spent a little bit of time and made sure that you had something to sink your teeth into, so to speak. Number 2, and I'm not sure if this is a cheat or not, okay? I'm not entirely sure. It may be, but bear with me and roll with me. And the good news is I get to make the rules because I'm working on making the video. I hate to sound like a broken record, but to get back to the title, Revenge of the Sith, this is the Sith's triumphant film. Right? This is when they get to come out in their full glory, so to speak. So my number 2, while he is not ever pictured within the film, he's definitely spoken about, and I'm not sure if you've heard about him, so I'll go ahead and ask, have you ever heard the tale? Darth Plagueis the Wise. He was so wise. He can stop the wise from wising. A character that captured a lot of our imaginations as we heard the story of him manipulating the midichlorians to create life, later expanded upon and alluded to in a manner of speaking of Palpatine possibly creating Anakin within Shmi. The character definitely has his place within Star Wars lore, and although he's not one of the more intimidating characters we've ever seen, I think all of us would love a few more Sith characters. I don't think there's anyone out there that if they announced some Sith character that was from some book or some novel or some comic or a video game, that anybody would be like, the last thing we need is another Sith. We all love the Sith. They look cool, they're dark, they're mysterious, they have that bad element to them. Who doesn't want more Sith? And he's probably one of the most popular and noteworthy ones due to the importance that he plays within the lore and mythology established within Episode 3. So Darth Plagueis is my number 2. And my number 1 choice should come as no surprise due to the theme of this very video, Darth Sidious. And the question is which representation to go with. My gut tells me the red robes is probably the best choice because it's so different, but my heart tells me I know which one I want, and that's the gray and black that we see when he fights Yoda at the end of the film, because it's the most Sithy. And as previously stated, we all enjoy the Sith. But yeah, either one would satisfy me, and to be honest, I probably won't be happy until I have both. But Revenge of the Sith, if nothing, is a celebration of our favorite Sith Lord and creepy grandpa-looking villain, Darth Sidious, with numerous one-liners that I feel like, at least in my circle of friends, get quoted on a weekly basis. Some of the most iconic shots within the film and within this trilogy as a whole circle around him, revolve around him, and the prequel trilogy really has him to thank for making it what it is. The Jedi are relentless. I would even like that one, the black and red. Like, I would take any representation of that character from that film. It's just so good. It would also give us us a break from the Emperor Palpatine that we often see represented in any scale, which is from Return of the Jedi. I feel like it's feast or famine and oftentimes with Star Wars, and that gets kind of extra attention while we don't have enough from the prequel era. The attempt on my life has left me scarred and deformed. It's really a shame that we don't have one already. So he is without a doubt, by and large, with no questions asked and no competition, the #1 choice for me of a wishlist character from Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Let's see how it works out come next year. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.